Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Roadmap to Secure and Compliant Medical Devices. Today's webinar is sponsored by DigiCert and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is Keith Ward. I'm with Actual Tech Media, and I'm thrilled to be your moderator for this special event. But before we get to today's great content, I need to go over some housekeeping items. First thing I want to mention is that we want your questions. Just put them in the questions box in your webinar control panel right there to the right of your screen. Now, that Q&A panel is also the place to let us know about any technical issues you might be experiencing. A browser refresh is the first thing you want to do if something doesn't look right or sound right or things go sideways. If that doesn't work, try another refresh. Sometimes it takes two. If that still doesn't work, let us know in the Q&A and we will provide further technical assistance. Next, check out the handouts section, which you can find right next to that questions tab. I'd especially like to call your attention to several resources from DigiCert, including a link for a special event and a free download of the Medical Device Manufacturing Toolkit. Wow, that is something I would love to have myself. So check that out and download those things now. In that handout section, you'll also find a link to the ATM Decisions Group, which is a panel of IT decision makers that you can apply to join to participate in some more in depth events and other special opportunities. Additionally, you'll find a link to the ATM Events Center, which has our calendar of more upcoming events like this one. Third, at the end of this webinar event, we will be awarding a $250 Amazon gift card to one of you attending right now. You do have to be in attendance during the entire live event to qualify for the prize. The official terms and conditions of today's prize drawing can be found in the handouts section. Just scroll to the bottom and you'll find the link with the details there. And with that, let's get to today's fantastic content. I'm going to be having a fun roundtable discussion with a couple of great DigiCert experts today. They are Tom Klein, Senior Director of Global Business Development, and Kevin Hilscher, the Senior Director of Product Management. Tom and Kevin are ready to go, so I'm going to join them right now. Okay, so let's just get going then. With me right now are Tom Klein and Kevin Hilscher, and I'm going to go through a little bit of their background here so you get to know them before we start the discussion. Now, Tom is a Senior Director of Global Business Development at DigiCert. He has 40 plus years in IT with a specialty in IoT security. He has worked with IBM, Microsoft, AWS, and security specialty organizations. Kevin is a senior director of product management. He works at the intersection of IoT and cybersecurity. Now, Kevin is the product leader for the DigiCert Device Trust portfolio of products, which are focused on securing the Internet of Things, IoT, as we've mentioned before. Kevin came to DigiCert from Microsoft, you might have heard of them, where he spent 7 years working with Azure customers, helping them adopt cloud and IoT. At Microsoft, Kevin helped design and deliver IoT products in his role as a principal product manager for Azure IoT. Gentlemen, it's a delight to have you here.
It
Thanks
is
for
good to
having
be
us.
here. Thank you very much.
It is my pleasure. So, why don't we just dive right in? First question for you both today. Tell me about the market of connected medical devices and the importance of device trust.
So I'll start off on this one. Been in medical devices now for the better part of 7, 8 years, among other devices. But medical devices have always been unique. They have consequences. They have unique environments that they need to operate in. And what happens to them has definite outcomes. And so I think what we've seen over time is that the importance of these devices, and more importantly, the integrity of these devices, has continued to increase. In this connected world we live in, we're seeing an awful lot of emphasis from government and other entities to make sure that these things run safely. So it's been a great environment for IoT and for secure devices.
Yeah, and I would add on practical terms, if you are in the unfortunate scenario of being in an ER or an operating room and you look around, or in a hospital bed, and you look around at the things that are, powering your, the equipment around you, and the logos. Really, it's IOMT is classically known as those types of things: infusion pumps, X-rays, dialysis units, and things like that. But in this world now of small connected devices, we're seeing more personal medical devices also fall under that category. Things like glucose monitors and artificial pancreases, for example. So we see a whole spectrum of devices, from things that typically would be in a hospital to now personal healthcare devices that consumers would use at home or on the road.
Great. So it's pretty amazing how much this space has evolved over the years. And so this is just, it's not what it was, and requires different solutions and a different way of thinking about things too. So, second question. The spotlight is now on security in medical IoT devices, which you were just describing. So, a couple of related questions. Why is that number? Okay, why is that? And why is the light shining so bright? What is it that gives this such a crucial importance in this day and age?
Yeah,
Why
I'll
don't you
take a
start
stab
that
at that.
one? Yep.
Sure. I think there's two reasons. One is now many of these medical devices are becoming connected. In the past, they were, plugged in at a hospital and not even connected, right? They were just self contained devices in an operating room or an OR of sorts, or some sort of clinic. So these devices are becoming connected. Therefore, they're becoming much more vulnerable to remote attacks. So that's, I think, the big driver of why the light is shining so bright on these. The second reason, as I mentioned, many of the devices are becoming personal devices that consumers take home, but they still have real world impacts, right? So glucose monitors can now control an artificial pancreas, and so that happens at home and in a consumer's home, right? And I think the third real big reason is now regulators are starting to step in and really regulate these connected medical devices.
Yeah, and if you look at the delivery of services, devices have gotten smarter and they're connected. So, and they're sending data back and they're receiving potentially instructions on things that they should or shouldn't do. So, the world of the clinician remotely being able to affect what that device is capable of doing, changing software on it, updating settings on it. There's this connection that goes on, and so the ability for a device to be smart enough, deliver what it needs to, give back data that is both clinical and, quite honestly, history of yourself and others that have similar afflictions, allows for the community to be smarter. So we've this connection does an awful lot of things besides simply monitor glucose or provide brain stimulation or all the other things we know about. There's a lot going on there for a connected device.
There sure is, and I think you've both been talking about, for example, a continuous glucose monitor. Now, this is close to my heart because I am a type 2 diabetic, so I have a continuous glucose monitor, and so I really understand what you're talking about here. I mean, I get warnings, for instance, and alarms if my blood sugar gets too low. So the the impact of what these things mean is very significant for the health of of the people who are using them. Now that can bring about a lot of regulation and a lot of government oversight. So can you talk to us about the IOMT regulatory compliance and what that means for the medical device manufacturing industry?
So I'll start with I think with the best intentions, these advances that I've talked about, governments are looking at outcomes that affect their constituents. And it doesn't matter if you're in the United States, if you're in the EU, almost anywhere in the world now, on behalf of consumers of services, governments are raising the standard by which there is delivery. And we're seeing a number of regulations come up around the world. And I would say this is a trend not only in medical. Medical is pretty high profile because of the potential impact on outcomes, but across the industry of connected devices, whether it's privacy, we talked about transmitting data before, all of these things have come under the eye of a variety of organizations across the world, and they're bringing out regulations, of which Kevin's very familiar with a number of these.
Yeah, I would add to that what Tom mentioned. Top of mind for medical device companies is the FDA's recent guidance called pre-market guidance from the FDA. It came out in September of last year. Up to that point, there was what they called post-market guidance. This was released, in 2016, which basically informed, companies selling medical devices in the U.S. It helped them understand what they needed to do from a cybersecurity risk management. It also told them, you need to do proactive monitoring, patching, and so on. These were pretty dated regulations. They're all good stuff. But in 2023, FDA released some updated ones for pre market, meaning devices that will go to market soon. And it's a well written document, and it really covers all the things that any medical device OEM needs to do. Again, um, over the air updates, critical updates, vulnerability disclosures, and some new things like secure bill of materials or SBOMs that categorize and inventory the commercial and open source software that's on that device, secure development practices, and so on. So that's in the US. In the EU, they have an equivalent. It's called the EU Medical Device Regulation, the MDR. It came into force in May of 2021. It kind of supersedes some other legislation. And again, very similar things. As if you're building the same device and you want to sell it to hospitals in the EU, you have to do very similar things. You have to do over the air updates. You have to be able to update the device quickly. You have to have vulnerability disclosure, risk assessments, secure by design practices. All these kind of things are now coming to bear for anyone or any connected company that's building connected products in the medical space. So the bar, to Tom's point, is being raised both in the medical field, especially, but you'll see it also in the consumer IoT space and other spaces as well.
Right. And it's worth asking, I think, next. Uh, the healthcare environment is just different than so many other things that we're talking about. So, for instance, IoT within the manufacturing industry, IoT within, say, closed circuit television environments. They are so much different than in when you're talking about healthcare, we're talking about medical devices. So, can you talk to me about those challenges that are seen in this healthcare environment with medical devices that aren't seen in these other areas that I just mentioned?
Yeah, they really cover the whole life cycle of the device. Consumer companies historically could get away with, putting out a device and never updating it. It goes into your house and it controls some light bulbs. Medical device companies could never do that. They're on the hook for the entire life cycle of that device, and that could be 5, 10, 15 years. So everything from the design phase, where they have to think about the hardware, the compliance, the certifications, and the hardware security, if there's any. And they've had a lot of challenges, with vulnerabilities in crypto and new crypto standards coming out from NIST to combat post quantum computing. And so, in the develop phase, they've got a lot of challenges and that they've had to think through because of these extended lifespans, right? So their medical devices may be sitting in the supply chain for 2 or 3 years and may come up in a world where post quantum computers have now broken classical algorithms. And so they need to protect themselves against that. And some of these IOMT companies are, manufacturing in Southeast Asia. So maybe the firmware is being written in Germany, the device is being manufactured in, let's say, Taiwan. And so the whole supply chain and ensuring that the devices are legitimate, not counterfeit, getting keys and certs onto those devices to a third party manufacturer is really important. Make sure that's secure. And then, that deploy phase is probably the longest phase, where the device may sit in the hospital or in an OR or clinic for 5, 10 years. These are expensive devices. And so, the medical device manufacturer is on the hook to monitor the device for exploits, vulnerabilities, new threats, do those updates in a timely manner. And then also, ideally, do them in a way that doesn't require a lot of outage. A lot of this equipment in a hospital, in an OR room, a lot of OR rooms are booked 24/7. And so you have to book maintenance windows on some of these devices in order to apply that patch and reboot that piece of equipment. And so there's some really unique challenges to the medical device manufacturers.
Yeah, I'd echo everything that Kevin said, and there's a unique relationship, I think, because of the services provided between the device manufacturers and the caregivers and the recipients. And someone in an organization once said, if this thing ran on a hamster wheel and was connected with string but saved a baby's life, we'd be very interested in that device. But the bar has now been raised, and I do think that the device manufacturers are very sincere in uh, what they're trying to do to make devices safer in this age of cyber threats, and that relationship between manufacturer, provider, and the customer, or the recipient really is evolving and getting more intertwined.
Right. That is for sure. So, we've touched on this a little bit, but I want to dive in a little deeper then on some of the risks that the regulations we've been discussing are trying to mitigate, because so much of this whole field is about that risk, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mentioned it before. There's data that's going back and forth. There are services that are being provided. And really, the risk is to care itself, to privacy, the intricacies of how to put that into. You mentioned you have a glucose monitor. Those patches are disposable, they're battery operated. I've worked on devices that are implantable heart monitoring devices, and those are, you don't want to have to change the battery in those, right? And so there's all of these things that add up inside of that make it important and relevant to what goes on. Kevin?
Yeah, and plus one on that, really the ultimate outcome that these risks are trying to mitigate is, that patient safety. Patient safety is number one
Absolutely.
all the time, every day. And so when you work backward from that, it's, things in the software that could, potentially compromise patient safety, supply chain attacks, vulnerabilities from open source software, um, hardware based attacks, debug ports, unsecured network ports. So all these regulations really end with patient safety. And they kind of work backwards from that in terms of the things that need to be done. And it's both process, tooling, training, risk management. All of it is really wrapped up in that. But really, that's ultimately the risk we're trying to mitigate is a patient can safely trust that device that's connected to them.
Right. Um, so we're still in some ways we're still kind of new to this area. The Internet of Things has been around for, it seems like, a long time, but in the grand scheme of things, not all that long. So these devices are far from ideal at this point. There's always upgrades, always evolution going on with this. But I want to ask you, in terms of the goals that you're looking for, so the ideal, you might put it, let me ask it this way: what would a perfect world look like for medical device manufacturers?
Yeah, that's a great question. And utopia, what does utopia look like
Right.
for these? So we're probably never, most medical device manufacturers will never get to utopia, but in a perfect world, we'd see, security in the design phase early on. Security being thought about when you're selecting the hardware. Does it have a that device, does it have a secure element, a trusted execution environment, a TPM, something where secrets and keys can be privately and securely stored? Is the software on that device really tightly integrated to that particular device, right? So, and then when the software is developed, are we using software from trusted sources, right? Are we using third party libraries, open source libraries? We writing it ourselves? Is it being scanned by, tools that developers would use to scan for vulnerabilities and secrets? And then if it's all scanned and good, are we signing it so that we only have validated software running on that device? So when the device is manufactured now, is only legit software being installed, that a third party manufacturer isn't adding something else after the fact? And is that device now using those hardware backed identities, those keys and certs that are baked into hardware? And if we have to send keys and certs and other secrets to our third parties, are we doing that in a highly secure auditable fashion? And then when the device leaves the factory, are we able to provision that device in a zero touch manner? A lot of people think zero touch is not much to do with security, but it does as well, right? The less people touching the device, if you have to have field techs going to hospitals with a laptop and a USB stick in order to provision that device, that introduces potential areas of vulnerability and weakness. And then are we now monitoring those devices over the lifespan of the device? Are we monitoring the S bombs and notifying our customers that, hey, there's an exploit now for a library we used and we have to patch it, and then securely patching the device and doing that over and over and again for 5, 10 years, whatever that lifespan of the device is. So we kind of think of utopia in these kind of like four pillars and these categories, but it's tough to achieve. And medical device manufacturers usually have a lot of different products, and often each product team and product line is totally different. They use different stacks and different tools and technologies, and so it's a big challenge, especially for product security officers, and so it's going to be hard to get there, but we believe it's worth trying.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so if you could get utopia, what Kevin said is absolutely true. And, what device manufacturers want to do is to build elegant, quite honestly, less expensive, easier to use, better care delivery devices. And they employ engineers and application development managers and a lot of very smart people to bring these devices to life so that they can do what they're supposed to do. And in a lot of cases, the last thing anybody wants to worry about is security. It doesn't mean that they don't, it just means that it's one more thing on their stack of things to do. So, this utopia of being able to build these devices and have a consistent and manageable and easy to use layer where security becomes really ubiquitous in terms of its ability to serve those folks that build and deliver devices, that would make a lot of people really happy.
Yeah, absolutely. On the topic of improving products and getting closer to that ideal, a little birdie told me that there is a significant announcement coming up on May 21st in Barcelona on the subject we've been talking about today. Can you give us any kind of a sneak preview of what we can expect?
Indeed, yes. So we'll be at IoT World Congress in Barcelona on May 21 to 23. And we will be announcing a new device trust solution aimed at helping medical device manufacturers and smart equipment manufacturers to address many of the challenges we just discussed today. We'll be delivering some speaking sessions, and we're going to have a booth there as well with lots of connected products and demos. And so we would love for, if you're there, to come visit us, and we hope to see many of you in person.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I'm really excited about this. I think we chose to get to a world event, IoT Congress, great event in Europe. This is a global audience. We work with medical device manufacturers, both in the EU and the United States, who also manufacture these globally. So I think bringing this all together on a large stage is very important and a great place to launch. And the one other thing I would say is, as you take a look at what happens here very shortly, we're going to we've already built into these products the ability to address some of the quantum issues that are over the horizon. So there's a many future considerations that I think these device manufacturers have. We've thought about those, and we will have a quantum-ready IOMT solution for them here in just a tiny bit.
Great. Sounds like it's going to be an awesome show. And finally, today, I just kind of want to ask you an open ended question. Any kind of summary, any final thoughts for us on anything we've been talking about today?
Um, I'm just going to say that we've been on this journey for a while, and I think the community, not just DigiCert, but device manufacturers, the recipients of care, have come a long way. There's been a lot to it, and we've learned a lot along the way. And things that have not gone as expected have been highlighted. Regulators have stepped in to put some pressure on the industry, and everyone's reacting to it. And I think with very good intentions and with as much speed as the market will allow us to. So I think there's a lot of goodness here, and I think we're fortunate to be a part of that. Kevin?
Yeah, I totally agree, Tom. And on the regulatory piece, medical device manufacturers, like we mentioned, have been regulated for many years in the US, in the EU, and other jurisdictions. My kind of closing thought here would be we are now starting to see that sort of level of regulation coming to other verticals. Consumer devices is a big one. So, what has been historically done in the medical field is now coming to smart thermostats, light bulbs, and things that will be in your house, Keith. And so, I think that's a good thing for consumers and other verticals because that is, an area of vulnerability right now in the industry and it needs to be addressed. So, we're pleased to see that kind of regulation now coming to those classes of devices too.
It's a new world, that is for sure. Okay, and finally today, I am sure we have generated a lot of interest among the attendees in what you've been talking about and how to stay safer with these medical devices and in the healthcare field. So, tell us, for those who want to take the next step, let's say right after this event, what should they do next? What is the very next thing they should do once this event is over?
Yeah, I mean, you can find out more by using the QR code on the screen. But after the event, just reach out to us. Come to digicert.com. All our products are listed there. So the new product announcement will be there. Reach out to us. Talk to us. We love doing demos and talking about what we're working on. But we really like feedback as well. And so we love getting feedback, good, bad, or otherwise, on where we need to go in order to really help medical device manufacturers and achieve true patient safety and that trust assurance for patients.
Yeah, be curious, keep learning, and there are hopefully we've been of service today in this conversation, but there's an awful lot of smart people here at DigiCert with a lot of different experiences. And so if there's something that you are curious about and you'd like to know more, please reach out and ask.
Thank you so much. I know I have learned a ton today that I didn't know before, and that's really why these events exist. So I want to thank you both, Tom and Kevin, for this discussion. It was so much fun for me, and thanks for your time. And I cannot wait to see what DigiCert is going to be doing in the future.
You bet. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Keith.
Wow, wasn't that a fun discussion, everyone? I loved it, and I hope you did too. I learned so much. And that takes us to near the end of this webinar, everyone. But before we wrap up, we do have one more piece of business for you, and that is to give away that $250 gift card. And the winner of the gift card for this webinar is Dustin Mustaine from Oklahoma. That's where the wind comes sweeping down the plain. Congratulations to you, Dustin. We will be in touch to get you your card ASAP. And with that, everyone, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, we are wrapped. I want to thank DigiCert for making this event possible. I want to thank all of you attendees for being here, for your great questions, and for spending part of your day with us. You are why we do this, and it's always a pleasure for me to be here with you. That concludes today's event. I look forward to seeing you in the next one, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.